Hello again. William Schnell, in his second book, Jehovah's Witnesses Errors Exposed, formerly known as Into the Light of Christianity, he's been talking about his initial bitterness, especially falling into Russellite movements, whose main task seemed to be to criticize the Watchtower, and how he had to escape from that because he had told the Lord that he would work for him and bless others rather than curse the Watchtower back when he was released in 1952. So he tossed out his early manuscript and wrote the manuscript we have now in the book 30 Years a Watchtower Slave. He goes on here as to what happened next after he was truly delivered from Watchtower bitterness and spell. I sit back to enjoy a rest is the subhead. Once 30 Years a Watchtower Slave had been completed and the Baker Book House had put it into print, that was October 1956, I settled back peacefully, content to sit at home. I did not know it then, but I was still in a stupor. I felt I had finished my promised task for the Lord and now could prepare for a pleasant life of mere church attendance and listening to sermons. Had I been allowed to follow my fleshly inclinations, I would never have fully come into the light of Christianity. Again, the Lord showed me his marked favor by leading the way. Of course, I did not know this at first. No sooner had my book appeared in print when, to my great surprise, and I assure you it was wholly unsuspected, I began to receive many invitations from pastors and churches to come and give my public testimony. Have you ever been fully taught never to go into a certain place? That such a place is unclean, that it is to be shunned at all costs. Well, I had. To me, Christian churches were places in which were roosting all unclean things. I had been taught to think of the Christian churches as Babylon the Great, having believed that so long of the churches of organized Christianity had become second nature to me. Can you imagine the quandary into which such an invitation put me? I had newly come from Watchtower slavery, but I was still brainwashed to their way of thinking. I instinctively shied away from Christianity. Much less was I prepared to go to their churches and talk to them. I did not want to go there. The Lord knew, though, that as a former rebel I was a heretic and apostate from the faith. If I were ever to come into the light of Christianity, I would have to find a way back to associate in fellowship with his people. Now I thank the Lord for making me go. It appears to me now, in the light of what transpired, that the Lord took my hand and led me into the light of Christianity. I procrastinated, but invitations persisted. Finally, I accepted the first call to St. Paul and Minneapolis, Minnesota. On my way, while changing stations in Chicago, I almost turned back, but the taxi drove on, bless its driver, and I caught the train and subsequently arrived in St. Paul. There was no one there to welcome me or meet me, and I felt deeply lost as I repaired to my reserved hotel room. But these feelings were soon dispelled by the Lord in Minneapolis. Speaking in the 4th Avenue Baptist Church, a servant of the Lord came to my aid. Dr. Richard Clearwaters, the pastor, watched me with compassion. He sensed my uncertainty about what I was doing. At the end of the meeting, he encouraged me. The next night at the Evangelical Free Church, I had a completely overcrowded church, and the pastor, a child of God, gave me a wonderful brotherly fellowship. Later, in a letter, Dr. Clearwaters drew my attention to the 1900 edition of the Goodspeed New Testament translation and asked me to read its foreword. In it, Dr. Goodspeed says 1/3 of the whole text of the New Testament is taken up with the battle contra heresy. This amazed me. Dr. Clearwaters continued in his letter, quote, "That is how important the battle contra heresy was in the first century. You, having come by the hand of the Lord out of the most modern and efficient of heresies of this 20th century, have been raised up by the Lord as one voice to use your former experience and insight into these matters to help Christianity in her battle and to win Jehovah's Witnesses for Christ." End of quote. My eyes were open now. I have since never failed to give public testimony in any and all churches, wherever and whenever the opportunity has presented itself. The Lord has shown me that what I foolishly had thought unclean was clean. The Lord used one of his faithful servants to give me focus. Here the Lord gave me a clear indication of his will. How thankful I am for his leading. It has truly led me into pleasant places. Next time, public ministry begins. I'll put in a link this time to Carla Love Johnson's wonderful book, Gentile Times Reconsidered, and the ExJW playlist. We did a discussion of Johnson's book. This is not actually a link to that book. I think you know where to find it. It's available for free by PDF online. See you next time.